Well, welcome. I'm so excited today to be interviewing a friend of mine and best-selling author, New York Times best-selling author, no doubt, of the henna artist, a wonderful lady called ALKA Joshi. And I'm so thrilled, Alka, that you've given the time today to talk to me about this wonderful book that you've written that I've just finished. And I just want to hear about the background to the writing. So I have so many speaker friends around the world who are also authors, and we all know how tough it is to write a book. But it'd be great to hear some of the traumas that you went through, the ups and the downs, and how it actually feels to be where you are with it right now. So I think the best place to start is to say that we've met because we're in the same community here on the wonderful Monterey Peninsula, and we know through probably our husbands with cycling in the first sense, but it's good to be so close to you. So I think the first question I wanted to say to you is, I absolutely love the book, and of course the main character Lakshmi and her journey to finding a true self and a purpose in life, that's how I interpreted it, was music to my heart, because my whole work around branding and finding your true self and your true purpose in life, your true authenticity, this really sang to that. So I love the whole story. So just tell us a little bit about the basis for the book first off.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for having me, and for anybody who's listening. Really happy that you are interested in this journey. So Lakshmi in the henna artist goes through very similar journey to what I did as a writer of this book. So in 10 years, I had a lot of stops and starts, and I learned three main things that are key to writing that I think are also key to Lakshmi's journey in the henna artist. One of them is patience, because you think along the way that you are finished with a draft and you think this is it. This is the draft that will get published. And you find out, no, it's not, because there are people who know better than you, people who are editors, people who are reviewers, people who are your professors, if you're taking some kind of a class, maybe an evening class or even an MFA program like I did, who will tell you you're not done yet. There is still development that needs to happen. So you have to learn patience. And secondly, you have to have resilience, because you have to keep going. So I had points in the book where people would send me 12 pages of notes on things that needed to change. And I would just be so downcast. I would think, oh my God, I can't continue with this. This is just a piece of fiction. Nobody has asked for this book. It's not like I'm writing something about Greek tragedies that has to be taught in school. I'm just writing about a woman living in 1950s India as a henna artist and what is happening in her life. So I just kept thinking, I can't do this. And my husband has been really great in those moments to say to me, just step away from the computer, go do something else, go cycling, go for a walk, step away for a couple of months if you have to. Just don't get stuck in this place. So I think resilience, and then coming back to something and reading something that you've written, and then being able to appreciate how much you have grown as a writer from the very first day that you started. I think that resilience is very important. And then I think the third thing I learned that I think Lakshmi also learns in the henna artist is flexibility. Mm-hmm. So the pandemic arrives about 10 days after my book is released on March the 3rd. And I am just in tears, because I thought, oh my gosh, a 10-year journey. And now I am so looking forward to speaking to readers, and I won't get a chance to speak to them. Nobody, there's nobody out there whom I know who has read the henna artist who was talking to me about the henna artist. So I was once again just like, oh my God, could this happen at a worse time? Then on March 11th, my editor called from New York, and she said, I have some really good news. And I said, why are you whispering? And she said, well, because, in our offices in New York, it's an open plan office. And this is before lockdown. This is almost like 5 days before lockdown. So she said, you know, we're not allowed to tell anybody right now, but Reese Witherspoon is picking up your book for the May 1st book club introduction. So I said, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. You know, my husband came down from the second story and he was like, what's going on? What's going, you know, like I can hear you all the way upstairs. What's going on? So I told him and we're all jumping up and down. And then, you know, we spend most of April, I spend with Reese's people trying to, and of course with my editor, to try to put together the content that's going to go in all of her May social media about the henna artist. So we put that together, and then in May, you know, it's all about, you know, the cooking videos that Reese's people are putting together and so on. So the flexibility that I learned through this experience is that even when bad things happen, like the pandemic, there are some good things that will come out of it. You and I are talking right now. I have been able to reach out to book clubs all around the world. We have been doing virtual book clubs, which is something that wouldn't have occurred to us before the pandemic, which is something that wouldn't have been even possible before the pandemic. And so now I can reach out to people without leaving my dining room, which is what this is.
Exactly.
And yeah, and so, you know, it's made the relationship between me and the readers a lot more accessible. If I were to do this in a bookstore, very few people would actually approach me and be able to talk to me for 10 minutes at a time. But now with book clubs virtually, they can all ask me individual questions and I'm answering all of their questions.
I think that's just wonderful. And just going back on a few things you said there, as a writer as well, and as an author as well, I know that one of the hardest things for me was when the edits started to come through, and I felt that I was losing the whole core of the book at one stage, that I'd written it in a certain way, and the editors were trying to change it in a way that I didn't feel. So there's an element of having to stand up to some of that, and an element, as you say, of having to be flexible. And I think flexibility and resilience and versatility and agility is something that everybody has learned through this pandemic. And I actually look back and think this is probably was perfect timing for you with this book after so long. Tell me, when did you start writing it? How long ago was it? Because I know it's quite a journey.
So 2009 was when I first started, because I had just entered my MFA program. Coincidentally, 2009, 10, and 11 were also the years that I was taking my mother back and forth to Jaipur in between my semester breaks and my summers. And so we would go for extended periods of time. And I had a lot of opportunity to ask her about her girlhood. We're just one-on-one, no other family members are around. We go visit her old school in Agra, where she was sent to boarding school. We went to the fruit market and looked for these particular fruits at a certain time that come out that she loved in India, that I don't even remember, and they aren't sold here in the United States. So we did a lot of exploration of her girlhood, which helped me a lot with putting that sort of authenticity in the book, her life in the 1950s. And then, of course, you know, my father is still alive. And so I was able to ask my father a lot about what's going on in India in 1950s. And he was part of the group of people that went out and built infrastructure. Because here are 900 million Indians in 1955 who are rebuilding India and can finally claim their nation for themselves. You know, they can finally, after 300 years of British rule, say, this country is ours. We get to do with it what we want. Finally, we have our land back, we have our people back, we can set new policies. So my dad was part of that whole infrastructure. He's building roads and dams and bridges and buildings. And, you know, he was like a mainstay of that rebuilding, that wonderful period of life.
It comes through so much in the way that you write, and I've been lucky enough to go to India a few times, and I absolutely love it, and the culture, and it comes through so strongly in the book. You can almost feel like you're there living this rebirth, as it were, and this discovery. And I think one of the things you said about being so open to hearing some of these edits and ideas, and that the fact that we don't know everything ourselves. I think the whole book is around that, is learning and being open to the opportunities that come our way, and being able to be open to those opportunities, because that's obviously part of the story as well, in having the ability to be open to that, and in the culture that Lakshmi comes from as well. So that's another question for you. When do you believe it all fell into place with finding the right publisher? Because I know that was a bit of a journey as well. Right. Was there an instance where you thought this is the right one, or does it just?
Well, I think that publishing requires a combination of several things. One is the hard work that you put into making your characters believable, making your situations believable. Number two, I think you have to have some kind of a strategy on how you're going to go about getting an agent, getting a publisher. And then number three, I think there's luck involved, lots of luck.
Yeah.
So when I went into my MFA program, I was very strategic about it. Number one, we were in San Francisco. I knew that I didn't want to actually, leave my husband and go live somewhere else. So it had to be local. It had to be something I could do locally. I only applied to 2 places. One was Mills College, which has a great tradition of female literature, an emphasis on the female. And then the other was the California College of Arts, where just coincidentally, the year that I was applying, this fabulous writer by the name of Anita Amirazvani was starting to teach there as an adjunct. And she had written a book that I love so much. And I believe it's one of the things that inspired me to write this story about Lakshmi and the henna artist. So her book is taking place in Iran in the 17th century. And what I loved about it was this whole idea of a woman who is elevating her craft to a very high place. And that's what I wanted in this book, in my book too. So I ended up going to California College of Arts, and it was only 3 miles from my house. Sometimes I'll just walk there. And I studied with Anita. I made her my mentor. And I thought, if her agent liked her book, I bet her agent is going to like my book. So if Anita sees value in my work, I think that she could help me get to her agent. We all know that it's very difficult to get a New York agent unless you have a connection of some kind. You have to have a connection. And there are very few publishers who are actually going to read a manuscript that didn't come recommended by somebody they know. So after several years of working on the henna artist, I called up Anita and I go, Anita, will you please read this draft? And can we send it to Emma Sweeney, your agent? And she said, you're not ready yet.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, it broke my heart because I thought, oh no, of course I'm ready. It's so beautiful. I've done it. I think it's totally finished. And she said, no, you still need to work on these characters, and your pacing is falling in the middle. You're not able to sustain the energy in the middle. So I thought, oh gosh. So I worked on it some more. And finally, I asked Anita again, Anita, can we send it now? So she said, okay. So she sent it off. And then months of waiting. And I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Finally, Emma does call back. And she goes, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love the book. I love Lakshmi. I love this story. But here are some things I really want you to work on. And the suggestions that she made had me eliminate 140 pages and start again from page 1.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So even your agent, you have to be very careful in the way you choose your agent, because Emma was not willing to let the book out and the manuscript to go out to publishers until she knew that it was ready to be published. So she would not let it go out. She worked with me for years. So after several years of going back and forth with edits with her, she said, okay, now I have taken you as far as I can as an agent. Now you need to get a book editor. And I said, what?
Oh gosh.
Yeah. So then I hired a book editor to look at my book cold. And then she sent me 12 pages of notes. Oh my God.
This is a real labor of love. Oh my goodness.
It is.
Wow.
At the same time, luckily I have, a full-time thing with a marketing and advertising agency that I run. So, I'm busy. It's not like I'm sitting around doing nothing and crying in my beer. Like, okay, you know, I've got work to do. I've got other projects. I've got a family, you know, all of that. Well, then finally I get to this point where I go, okay, here you go, Emma. Here's the manuscript. Here is my final. And she said, oh, I think there's a couple more changes. I said, no, Emma, no, please no. I have done as much as I can. And if what you're trying to tell me is that you don't want to represent me, that you would rather have me go to another, you know, I thought maybe that's what she was trying to say, is like, ALKA, I love the book, but you're not close and I need to cut you loose. But she said, no, that's not my intention at all. No. Okay, if you think you're finished, let's take it out. She did, and then she sold it to Mira, which is a division of HarperCollins. And it's a division that really focuses on female-centric books. And so she had worked with the editor there, the acquisitions editor, she'd known her for like 30 years. So she put it in such good hands. Then Kathy, my editor, said, oh, ALKA, I love this book. And we have a publishing board. Now, this is something I didn't know, Lesley, that when you go with a major publisher, they have a pub board. They all within that pub board, maybe it's a group of 6 people, maybe it's a group of 12 people, but they are from publishing, they are from publicity, they're from marketing, sales, all kinds of different places. And they are all going to read that book before they say, yes, let's buy the book. It's not just one acquisitions editor who says, yes, I'll buy this book. So this was really key for me to learn, because then what happened is I thought, oh, okay, so if that many people said yes to this book, it just made me validated. You know, it just made me feel like, okay, I've done my job. And so then Kathy still had edits for me, so I had to make those edits, but her edits make the book sing. She had me make 2 edits that really helped shape Lakshmi's arc and the ending. And
so that was the icing on the cake. And I think what's lovely there is that you were so open to all these suggestions that you had, and you finally got to a point where you said, no, that's it, that's my best piece. And you had the strength to say that. And then there was still that little bit that came in, but you felt that was obviously right to take that as well. I mean, I've only ever written nonfiction books, and I had a contract with McGraw-Hill in New York. And some of the things that you said there, I went through as well. And certainly this realization that the whole team would sit around a table and say, well, how are we going to make money out of this book? Because that's ultimately what they're looking at. And that was a revelation to me as well. So, but there were other things that you went through that I didn't. So I'm guessing there must be differences between fiction and nonfiction.
Huge.
Publishing. Yeah.
Huge. You know, people with nonfiction books will often ask me, you know, will you look at my manuscript or recommend it to your agent? It is not the same world at all.
Exactly.
Fiction and nonfiction are different. The people who buy nonfiction are primarily men, and they're primarily in that sort of 40, 50, 60-year-old crowd.
Wow.
Okay, that age group. The people who buy fiction are largely women. It's completely the reverse. So the people who buy fiction are going to be women anywhere from the ages of, let's say, 40 to also 60, 65. And the reason that those 2 worlds can't really coexist or can't be the same agent or the same publisher for both is because they are such different demographics. Yeah. So when Mira accepted my work, they knew it was going to appeal to the audience they know, which are the women who buy books, who fall in love with books, who are passionate about books. These are the Oprah's book club women, the Reese Witherspoon book club women, the Jenna Bush book club women. Women get really passionate about books.
Yep. And I think that, and on that note, actually, and I think, was it the point at which you heard that Reese Witherspoon was going to feature in her book club that really was this is it, this is really going to go somewhere now? Was it at that point that you really realized that this has really made it?
Well, it's interesting. Last fall, Mira had me come to, here's Reese, fabulous. Yeah. Doesn't she look lovely there?
I am just a fantastic photo.
Yeah, I am so glad that people like Reese exist to promote women's works. Because if you think about it, as we were just talking, in fiction, it's largely women who are buying the books. And yet, when we look at the bestseller list, men are at the top of even the fiction bestseller list. Now, why is that? And
Wow.
people like Reese have come along and said, you know what, we need to promote the books written by women. And this is why on the bestseller list today, she has got 5 of the books that she has recommended on the New York Times bestseller list. That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, last fall, Mira had me come to New York. They hosted me in New York. They hosted me at this big conference of, it's called the Girly Book Club. And that's kind of a strange name, but it's a great book club of all women. And they only read books by women, which is great. So they hosted me at this thing. They put a big lavish thing together for this book club. They all came into New York and, at the big HarperCollins building. And then they flew me to Toronto and met with all of the Toronto staff. They had me meet with the biggest bookseller, which is Indigo in New York. And so they took me out to lunch with her. And, it was just fabulous. And I said to them, I said, wow. I said to the marketing manager who was schlepping me around, I said, this is amazing. You guys are so supportive of your authors. And he looked at me and he goes, Alka, we don't do this for every author. we know that your book is going to be a bestseller.
Oh my goodness.
They knew back then.
Yeah.
And so that's when I started thinking, oh, this isn't just like any book tour. This is like a really big thing. They are planning on this. And they said this is going to be a huge book, we know, in Canada, because we have a huge immigrant population that is really going to love reading about another country. Canadians are very open to learning about different countries, and they don't mind if it has foreign words in it. So we know it's going to be a big bestseller in Canada, which is a smaller market than the US. However, they are a very passionate market. So I thought, oh, okay, so it's going to be a bestseller in Canada. It wasn't until Reese, I think, picked it for her book club that I think a lot of people also in the United States then saw it and picked it up. So it had already gone great guns in Canada. It was already doing well in the US, but not like Reese Witherspoon. She kicked it up like, 10,000 paces up.
Yeah, so that was a real start, and I guess that was the real foot up you needed, or that it got for getting you on the New York Times bestseller list, right. And that's phenomenal. I'm just in awe of that. And I saw that Oprah magazine was also featuring book. Yes.
Yes, and let's see, Vogue India is doing a feature on me this next month in July. So I just got word on that. And then Harper's Bazaar India, because the book is now finally available in India. It was supposed to be published in India even before this, but the pandemic shut down the printing presses there. So HarperCollins India is putting the book out now in India. And so now I'm getting all this publicity in India, which is really cool. I am waiting for NPR to call me. Hello.
I'm here.
Where are you?
Oh my goodness. So really, there's no, just in terms of people listening and dreaming of having such success with their book, what you're saying is there's really no sort of magic bullet. There's a lot of luck involved. Obviously, the real leg up was the Reese Witherspoon. You had no idea, or do you have any idea actually now? Because I know that you said you hadn't, how Reese how the book was managed to get into Reese Witherspoon's hands, because that was the start. That was the luck bit. But do you have any idea how she managed to get hold of it?
I don't really know how she got the book. I have a feeling that, and once again, when you go with a large publisher like a HarperCollins house, then they have ways of getting these books into people's hands who are influencers. I'm not quite sure who all those lists are. I wouldn't even know how to get a hold of any of those people. But apparently, let's see, I heard through my editor that maybe Reese had received the book last fall. And then after she had read it, she had decided, that she was going to promote it in May. So I don't really know how these things happen. I really do think that this is a combination of the universal forces, luck, and just diligence.
Well, it's still meant to be, and well deserved as well. So much so. So looking back right now, what would you say to you? What would you tell yourself to do differently, or what advice would you have looking back that you'd give to budding authors now, or people that have been writing for so long and it never seems to be coming together? What have you learned through the process, apart from what you said about resilience? But
okay, so there are several things I've learned. One of them is that it really does help to go into an MFA program, because you're breathing and living books the entire time. So if your chosen work is fiction or nonfiction, you're going to be immersed in that world while you're in the MFA program. That I think is really key. But if you can't do that for whatever reason, because of economics or because time or because you need your full-time job, then the best thing to do is to take evening classes, but take them with a published writer, and take them with a published writer who is either, if you're writing nonfiction, then take them with a nonfiction published writer. If you're writing fiction, then take them with a fiction published writer. And the publishing should have happened within the last, let's say, 5 to 7 years. Because if they have recently published, they would know how to put you in contact with people that can get your work into the hands of readers. If it's longer than that, they may not know the right people to send you to places. No. And the other thing is that the writing is always changing, right? So now it is important for books to be somewhere between 250 to 300 pages. Not the long tomes that Charles Dickens or Leo Tolstoy would have written. So the length of the manuscript changes. The way that people want a prologue or an epilogue, or don't want a prologue or epilogue, that changes with time. So the more recently your instructor, your guru, your writing guru has been in that world, the publishing world, the more likely they are to be able to help you get there. So that's, like number 2. And then number 3, you have to have a lot of humility. You have to know that you don't know everything. You may think that you have written the next American great novel, but believe me, you're way off because you have to listen to those people who are in the business. They know better than you. They can tell you, how you need to shape things. And then, Lesley, I think regarding this ability to push back, to say, I am done, or this is about as much as I can do about this character development, that comes with time. Because with time and with more writing, the more you understand where you need to go and whether you need to go even further. You get much more confidence in your own work. And that's, I think, super, super helpful.
Yeah. So it's a process. It's not being so stubborn that you stick to it. It's a process of knowing when you get to the point to say, right, that's it.
Right. Like, I'll give you an example. People will often give me manuscripts and they'll go, can you please look at it and give me some feedback? And I'll say, well, okay, so here's my feedback. Well, immediately when I start giving feedback, they get defensive, and they're like, well, I did this because I wrote the character that way because blah, blah, blah. Or, yeah, that scene is going in this direction because of blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, well, if you want feedback, this is feedback. That means you stop talking, you listen to the person who's giving you feedback, you write it all down, you process it, you think about it later, you don't react, you process it, you go, oh, okay, I see where they're trying to go with this or with that, okay. And then you can come back to them and ask them questions like, why did you think this needed to happen? People have to really learn, writers have to learn that their work is not guaranteed fabulous just because they think it might be fabulous. Absolutely. They do have to listen.
I think, humility, it's a strange thing. I was just reading an article just this morning about humility and how important it is in leadership. And I think probably even more so coming through what we've all just been through, but it's understanding that we're not perfect, and it's okay not to be perfect. We're human, and we need to understand and listen to others and take that feedback constructively and listen and process it, as you say, and learn from it. And also to admit that maybe we haven't got the best answer all the time, and that can be tough.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. It's one of the hardest things to do, I think. But as we get older, it actually does become easier to say, I don't know everything.
Yeah.
It's that whole old Mark Twain thing, right? When he was 18, he thought that his father didn't know anything. And by the time he was 21, he realized how much his father had grown. And
That's right. I remember that. Yeah, I'd forgotten that piece, but it's so true. So just and I don't want to sort of tempt fate here or anything, but I feel like this book is so fascinating. It's such a rich. You immerse yourself into richness and the color and life and culture of India. And for me, it just feels like a movie is like something that will come out of this. And I know from what Reese says that she has a ability to spot books and read books and recommend books that actually often turn into a movie. So who knows? But what do you think is next for you? What is next? Because you're right immersed into this you've been built up into this pedestal, onto this pedestal now as an author, and rightly so. But what next?
Well, it's so wonderful how this 10-year journey got me to the point where I really know these characters really well. So they started just in my mind, they would not leave me alone. They said, we have a story, we have another story to tell. So I have written a sequel. I wrote a sequel last year, and that got sold in December to HarperCollins. So, I mean, I only had like 50 pages written, and my agent said, let's send off those 50 pages plus a synopsis. And the next day we had an offer. So, so that is now in the works, in the editing process, and hopefully that will come out almost next year or maybe the year after. The paperback comes out in April, so the book will get a new life at that time. And then I have a third book in my head, so it will become a trilogy. And because it's a trilogy and it can take place over 20 years, I'm really hoping that a streaming series will pick it up, Hulu or Amazon, or somebody will pick it up, because there is so much visual richness and there's so much character development in this novel. And it's all taking place in India, which I think has a lot of fascination for people. Don't you think, Lesley?
Oh yeah, it really does. Yeah. And if you've been there, even more so, you can immerse yourself in it. For me, it's a little like Africa. It gets in your blood. You just want to know more. And I'm just so excited. I didn't know there was a sequel. So to hear what happens next would be, it's just so exciting. I can't wait to hear that.
Lesley, I am just one day at a time, because every day brings new and fabulous things that I can work on, that I can do. Let's say that I'm done with all the books. Well, I have a graphic novel that I had started writing years ago and drawing about our immigrant experience here in America.
Wow.
So I have that in the works.
I'd love to read that.
I also have a bunch of New Yorker cartoons that I keep working on. I've never sent one in, but I have a dachshund who's very ornery, so I have a bunch of dachshund cartoons. So maybe I'll do that.
And of course you've got all the cooking as well, all the recipes and the things that you're doing now as well. So there's so much that's coming out of this. Who knows?
And I'm 62 now, and I used to look at people when I was 30, looking at people who are 60 and thinking, wow, they're on that downhill trajectory.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm on anything but a downhill trajectory.
Exactly the opposite.
Going skyrocketing up, and I intend to keep going that way.
Good for you. I'm so glad to hear it. And I just want to say so many congratulations. I'm just delighted for you that this has happened. You know how excited and thrilled I am. And I really hope we can get together soon in your busy schedule to share that Indian food we've talked about. I've been learning some authentic Indian cookery since we've been down in it's lockdown, and we love it anyway, coming from England. So looking forward to the time when we can share that again. But in the meantime, just so many congratulations. And I'm so thrilled for you. I can't wait to see what happens next. And thanks so much for spending the time with me today. It's been an absolute joy.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk to more readers and more potential readers about the henna artist. And I hope you will all follow me on Facebook and Instagram.
Absolutely. Yes, we'll share this and put all the links there too as well. Thanks, ALKA. Thanks. And I'll see you soon.
Happy writing, everybody.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.